I already responded to azureScapegoat's video, but I thought I'd respond to it again since there's more I wanted to say, and because he deserves to be aggressively criticized until the end of time. azureScapegoat is a revolting slug-like creature who made a very stupid video in defense of North Korea. His video was sloppily plagiarized from a Wikipedia page that was created by Marxist activists. The Wikipedia page he stole from is just a list of random things the media has gotten wrong about North Korea, and the conclusion North Korea apologists think you should draw from this is that the negative information about North Korea is just part of a big conspiracy, and we don't really know anything about North Korea. This is a classic conspiracy theorist argument. For example, the Sandy Hook conspiracy theorists tried the same thing. They pointed out that the media has made a lot of mistakes covering the Sandy Hook shooting, as though that proves it was all a hoax. Of course, this is a ridiculous argument. The media screws up all the time on all kinds of topics, and the only reason these tankies know about the media's mistakes on North Korea is because the media later corrected itself. Also, there are a lot of claims the media has made about North Korea that are well supported, like that North Korea has extraordinarily horrid prison camps. Another big problem is that these tanky channels don't engage with the most serious sources. Instead, they go after low-hanging fruit, like Fox News or the Daily Mail. azureScapegoat doesn't mention any of my main sources. He just talks about news media while ignoring the human rights reports and books written by experts. In my previous video, I gave a brief overview of the human rights abuses of North Korea. I said that there's a large amount of defector testimony, much of which is corroborated by other witnesses and satellite evidence. To quote a human rights report on North Korea from the UN, individual cases and incidents reflected in this report are generally based on at least one credible source of first-hand information, which was independently corroborated by at least one other credible source of information. And regarding the satellite images, the UN report says they also provide a clear picture of the evolution of the prison camp structure and corroborate first-hand accounts received from former prisoners and guards. We have something like 30,000 defectors now. If North Korea was actually an alright place, you'd think we'd be able to make a case for that. But no, what we have is a constant stream of horror stories. And again, there's a lot of consistency between accounts that you wouldn't expect if all of this was just made up in order to sell stories. I know azureScapegoat said he's not saying all the defectors are liars, but he immediately follows that by saying there's no way we can know for sure what's going on in North Korea. And later in the video, he shows a clip of a hipster who says that North Korea's prison camps are just regular prisons. He seems to agree with this, and at no point in the video does he contradict it. So yeah, he's essentially saying they're all liars, at least the ones who talked about the prisons, and I guess he just doesn't know what to believe about the rest. We know the prison camps exist and we've got pictures of them. Now, obviously North Korea won't tell us about these places or let anyone investigate them. This is just one part of North Korea's obsessive dedication to preventing information from getting in or out, which is something that azureScapegoat and many other apologists don't even try to explain. The most obvious explanation for preventing information from coming in is that they want to keep their citizens as deluded as possible. As for keeping information from getting out, well, you don't go out of your way to hide something if you have nothing to hide. Now, while I was working on this video, I was in the middle of reading another book about North Korea, and I glanced at Twitter to see Hassan Piker, the malformed brute, retweeting a video of some homeless crackhead rapping in a grocery store. Hassan has over 14,000 tweets of similar quality. This guy is just a fucking basic bro. All he cares about is pop culture. He knows all the lyrics to the latest Chi-Wooby songs, but he's never read a book in his life. He doesn't research any of the issues he talks about, and his behavior is indicative of low intelligence. He is a thoughtless, apish clown. azureScapegoat points to a few North Korea defectors who want to return to North Korea, apparently thinking this means that North Korea must not be that bad. He cites a Guardian article on this issue, and of course the same article also says that there is no doubt that the North Korean regime has committed serious human rights abuses. Anyway, I talked about this issue in my previous video, but here I'm going to quote what Andrei Lankov says about it. It would be wrong to assume that North Koreans feel regret about their move to the south. There have indeed been a few cases of refugees fleeing the south in order to head back north, but for every such case, there are hundreds of instances where individuals and entire families work hard to pay a broker in order to bring their relations to the south. azureScapegoat glosses over the fact that defectors often prefer to remain anonymous. He's simply using this fact to cast doubt on their testimony without realizing how incriminating it is of North Korea. Defectors want to remain anonymous because they're afraid of North Korea. Specifically, they're afraid that North Korea will harm their family as it's threatened to do. Also, if the defectors were really just making shit up about North Korea, it wouldn't make sense for them to have such fears. In my previous video, I didn't go into any detail about specific prisoners and their testimonies, so I thought I'd talk about a couple of them here just to give a better idea of what some of these people went through. Shin Dong-hyuk is the most famous of the defectors to have given false testimony. The reason I'm bringing him up is because he is the main example North Korea apologists point to when they argue that the defectors are liars. His testimony wasn't proven false apart from his own admission that some of the details in his story were incorrect. He has changed the dates and places that certain events took place. However, he and the experts are still saying that the most important and horrific parts of his story are true. He has burn scars on his back and electrical burns on his legs. This is consistent with his story of being tortured and escaping the prison camp by getting past an electrified fence. So, as you would expect from a country that regularly tortures people, a lot of people escape with gruesome scars. There are many more examples of this in the reports I've cited below. One such example is Bang Mi Sun, who as you can see has a disfigured leg. A guard beat her on the head and leg with a wooden stave. Her leg became infected to the bone, a kind of osteomyelitis resulting in deep scars which caused her to limp pronouncedly 10 years later. People are aware that the Soviet Union had a hand in shaping North Korea, and that North Korea in many ways looks like a worse version of the Soviet Union. North Korea was supposed to be a puppet state of the Soviet Union. The Soviets picked Kim Il-sung to be the leader, and the Soviets pretty much had complete control over North Korea during the early years. North Korea scholar Andrei Lankov describes Soviet control as omnipresent in the late 40s. North Korea has a lot of obvious similarities with Soviet Russia, including famine, dictatorship, purges, a cult of personality, a centrally planned economy, and the use of Orwellian language. My point is that none of this looks good, and it's not hard to believe that such a country also has political prison camps. It was plausible to believe in the prison camps even before the vast majority of the defectors arrived in North Korea. In 1997, Bruce Cummings, who has been called the left's leading scholar of Korean history, predicted, "If and when the North Korean regime falls, we will probably learn of large numbers of people held in prisons and reformed through labor camps and various unimaginable atrocities."